They say vacations bring families closer. But for me, that trip ripped everything apart. One perfect sunset revealed every lie she ever told. I didn't scream right away. I planned my silence like a weapon. And by the time the waves turned dark, I'd already decided how to make her pay. If you've ever trusted someone completely, and they destroyed that trust, the story will hit deep. Stay with me till the end, if you believe in karma. Hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe for more real stories like mine. You know those moments in life that feel too good to question? That was us, me, Raina, and our little boy, Cal, unpacking our bags for what was supposed to be a perfect family vacation. I remember standing by the car that morning, the sun spilling across the driveway, and thinking, this is what happiness looks like. Raina was laughing at something Callan said, her hair catching the light like it always did when she was excited. I'd been working long hours, missing dinners, skipping weekends, and this trip was my way of making things right. A fresh start, or so I thought. The drive to the coast felt light, easy. We sang along to old songs, teased each other, took silly selfies at gas stops. Every time I looked over at her, she smiled back with that same warmth that once made me fall in love with her. But there was something I couldn't quite name. It wasn't big, just tiny moments that slipped by too fast to grab. The way she kept checking her phone, the way her laughter sometimes stopped halfway, like her mind was somewhere else. I told myself I was overthinking it. I wanted to believe that the woman beside me was still mine in every way that mattered. When we reached the resort, it was everything we needed. Golden beaches, ocean breeze, and the kind of silence that makes you feel alive. Callan ran straight toward the waves, laughing so hard his voice echoed off the cliffs. Raina followed him, her dress fluttering in the wind, and I stood there watching them, heart full. I remember thinking, this is what I'll fight to protect forever. I didn't know it then, but that same sea breeze carried the scent of betrayal, soft, invisible, patient. Sometimes life doesn't destroy you all at once. It waits until you're standing in your happiest moment, and then it quietly pulls the ground from under your feet. If you've ever trusted someone with your whole heart and later learned they were holding a knife behind their back, stay with me, because this story is how I found out. The first few days felt like peace. We spent our mornings chasing the sunrise and our evenings chasing Callan around the beach. It was the kind of simple happiness I'd missed for years. But slowly, that peace began to change shape. It started with little things easy to ignore, easy to explain away. Raina began waking up earlier than usual, slipping out of bed before the sun even touched the water. When I asked where she was going, she'd smile and say she just needed a quiet walk to clear her head. It sounded innocent enough, and I wanted to trust her. I did trust her. But something about that smile, too practiced, too perfect, didn't feel like the woman I married. Then came the phone. It became her shadow. She'd take it everywhere, into the bathroom, onto the balcony, even when she was just stepping out to grab a towel. At first, I laughed it off. We all live on our phones now, right? But one night, while I pretended to be asleep, I saw the glow of the screen reflecting on her face. Her expression wasn't soft or distracted, it was focused, like she was waiting for something. A message came in, and she smiled. Not the tired, end-of-the-day smile she gave me. This one was different, alive. I felt a pinch in my chest I couldn't ignore. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being paranoid, that vacations made people act differently. But the small things began to pile up. The way she suddenly dressed up for solo walks. The way her laughter felt distant, even when she was sitting right next to me. The way her eyes wandered when I talked, like she was listening to someone else inside her head. I didn't want to believe my instincts. You never want to think the person you love could betray you. But every night, that quiet voice inside me got louder, telling me something was breaking. And no matter how hard I tried to hold it together, the cracks were already showing beneath her smile. By the fourth day, the uneasy feeling in my chest had turned into a constant weight. I couldn't relax anymore, not even when the ocean wind brushed against my face. I watched Raina more than I wanted to. Every laugh, every glance at her phone, every step she took away from MIT, all started to feel like evidence. I hated myself for thinking that way. But doubt has a strange power. It doesn't shout. It whispers, quietly convincing you that something sacred has already been lost. That afternoon, she said she was going down to the spa for a couple's yoga class. She wanted me to rest, said I looked tired. I remember smiling and saying, "Go ahead," while my heart screamed at me not to let her go. Hours passed. When she came back, her hair was messy, her cheeks flushed, not like she'd been meditating. She said it was from the heat. I nodded, pretending to believe her, pretending I didn't feel my stomach twist. The next morning, Fator. Maybe karma gave me the proof I didn't want. She'd left her phone on the nightstand while she showered. For a moment, I just stared at it, battling with myself. But curiosity, or maybe pain disguised as courage, took over. I picked it up. There it was. A message that shattered everything. "Can't wait to see you by the cliffs tomorrow." Same time, my hands went cold. My vision blurred. I scrolled up, and though most messages had been deleted, a few remained fragments of something intimate, hidden, alive. I could almost hear her voice between the words. I didn't confront her. Not yet. My mind wasn't ready for the explosion. Instead, I slipped the phone back, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. That night, I barely spoke. I just lay there beside her, listening to the rhythm of her breathing and wondering how someone could sleep so peacefully while tearing another person apart. I knew then I couldn't live on suspicion anymore. I needed the truth. Not from her lips, but from her actions. And I would find it no matter what it cost me. After reading that message, something inside me went quiet. Not the kind of silence that comes from peace, but the kind that grows from heartbreak. I didn't shout. I didn't confront her. I just stopped reacting. Every smile, every word I spoke after, that felt like a mask I wore while my mind worked in the background, piecing together what I had to do. Raina thought she was fooling me. In truth, she was walking right into my plan. The next morning, she slipped out again, saying she wanted to explore the cliffs before breakfast. I told her to take her time. The calm in my voice even surprised me. As soon as she left, I grabbed my phone and headed out the back path that led toward the coast. The air was still, the sea whispering against the rocks below. I found a spot behind a cluster of boulders overlooking the cliffs far enough to stay unseen but close enough to see everything. And then she appeared. Raina, wearing that same pale dress she'd worn on our first trip years ago, the one she knew I loved. But she wasn't alone. A tall man waited for her near the edge. Levin, a family friend. Someone I'd welcomed into our circle, trusted with my home, my wife, my son's laughter. When she reached him, they hugged not a polite, friendly hug. A familiar one. One that said everything words couldn't. My breath caught, but I didn't move. I lifted my phone, hands shaking, and hit record. Every second felt like a knife. Their voices were faint, carried by the wind, but the looks between them said enough. My wife wasn't just drifting away. She had already left me long before this trip began. When she finally walked back toward the resort, I stayed hidden, letting the waves drown out the sound of my heartbeat. I'd seen enough to destroy her. But I didn't want revenge built on rage. No, I wanted her to feel the same helplessness she'd given me. And that meant I had to stay silent just a little longer. When I walked back to our room, the world felt different. The air was heavier, the light too sharp. Even the sound of the ocean outside felt like a cruel reminder of what I'd just seen. Raina was inside, humming softly while folding towels, pretending life was normal. I stood by the door, watching her, realizing that I didn't recognize the woman in front of me anymore. She turned, smiled, and asked if I wanted coffee. I nodded. My voice didn't work. My throat felt locked, like if I spoke, everything inside me would come spilling out. I went into the bathroom and closed the door. That's when it hit me, the full weight of what she'd done. My knees gave out, and I just sat there on the cold tile floor, my head buried in my hands. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Just silence and the sound of my heart breaking, piece by piece. How could she? How could the woman who once held me like I was her world now hold someone else the same way? I thought of Callan, his laughter on the beach, the way he clung to her hand. My chest tightened until I could barely breathe. How do you tell your son that the person he loves most is the reason your family is falling apart? You don't. You swallow the pain and tell yourself you'll handle it because he deserves better than your tears. That night, I couldn't sleep. Raina lay beside me, scrolling through her phone with that same faint smile. Every flick of her thumb felt like another wound. I turned away, staring at the ceiling, letting the storm build inside me. But even through the heartbreak, a strange clarity began to form. Pain can break you, yes, but it can also shape you. And as I lay there beside the woman who betrayed me, I promised myself something: she would never see my pain again. The next time she saw my face, it wouldn't be the face of the man she broke. It would be the face of the man who exposed her. By the next morning, my grief had hardened into something colder focus. The storm inside me had quieted. Not because it was over, but because I'd chosen to control it. I didn't want to argue, didn't want tears or apologies that meant nothing. I wanted truth, and I wanted everyone to see it. So I planned dinner. A special night, I told Raina. Just us, Levin, and a few close friends. A proper farewell to the trip. Her eyes flickered for half a second, nerves she tried to hide behind a polite smile. That sounds wonderful, she said, and that was all I needed to know. The day passed like a performance. We laughed, took photos, built sandcastles with Callan. But beneath my calm voice, my mind was sharp and calculating. Every move I made was part of something larger, something that would end this charade for good. When Raina wasn't looking, I set up my phone at the dinner spot near the beach. Hidden between candles and napkins, its camera facing where she'd sit. It wasn't just a dinner anymore. It was a stage. As the sun melted into the horizon, I lit the candles and played soft music. Raina looked stunning, as if nothing in the world could touch her. Levin arrived late, slightly nervous, eyes darting between us. I greeted him like a friend, shaking his hand firmly, smiling like the man I used to be. The irony was almost poetic. He had no idea he was walking into his own undoing. We sat down, laughed over food, and shared stories. I spoke gently, my voice steady, hiding the storm beneath. Every glance they exchanged, every small gesture, I noticed it all, storing it like ammunition. And as the night deepened, I looked at her, really looked at her, and thought, you ended this marriage the moment you chose deceit. I'm just here to write the final chapter tomorrow. I'd show her what betrayal looks like under the spotlight. Tonight, I let her enjoy her last meal as the woman everyone thought she was. Dinner began like any other perfect evening. The air was warm, the sea calm, the sky scattered with stars that felt almost too beautiful for what was about to happen. Raina laughed easily, a little too easily. Levin sat across from her, trying to avoid my eyes, though he failed every time I smiled at him. My hands were steady, my voice calm, but inside me, every heartbeat echoed with the truth I was about to unleash. After dessert, I stood and said, I have something special prepared for tonight. Raina's eyes lit up. She thought it was romantic. In a way, it was just not the kind she expected. I turned toward the small projector I'd set up near the table, pretending it was for a slideshow of our trip photos. The lights dimmed, the waves whispered, and the first image appeared a smiling family at the beach. Our family. Laughter filled the air. Then, the next clip rolled. Her face, her voice, her arms around him. The cliffs. That morning, it felt like the world went silent. The waves stopped, the air froze, and all I could hear was the sound of her wine glass shattering against the floor. Raina's face drained of color. Elias. I can explain, she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't shout. I didn't even move. No, I said softly. You've explained enough. I turned to leave on. You too. You're done pretending. People nearby had turned to watch. The sound carried across the patio. Raina reached out, desperate, but I stepped back. Her hand hovered in the air before falling to her side. And then, in panic or shame, she slapped me hard. The sting on my cheek was sharp, but I didn't react. I simply looked at her, straight into her tearful eyes, and said, Smile for the camera, Raina. You always loved being the center of attention. Oh. I walked away then, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her own lies. Behind me, I could hear her sobbing, begging, but I didn't turn back. That night, under those perfect stars, the truth finally spoke louder than love ever did. When I walked away from that dinner table, I thought I'd feel powerful, vindicated, maybe even free. But the truth is, there's no joy in exposing someone you once loved. There's just silence. Heavy, echoing silence. I stood near the edge of the beach, staring at the waves as the chaos unfolded behind me. Guests whispered, chairs scraped, and I could hear Raina's sobs mixing with the sound of the ocean. Levin followed her out of the restaurant. But not before throwing one last glance, my way a look filled with shame, fear, and something close to regret. I didn't return it. He wasn't worth even that. By the time I went back to our room, Raina's things were gone. Her suitcase, her perfume, the little silver bracelet she always wore, it was as if she'd vanished. Only her wedding ring lay on the table beside the bed, glinting under the lamp. I picked it up, turned it in my hand, and realized how meaningless that circle of gold had become. It was supposed to represent forever. Now it just felt like proof that forever can end quietly without warning. Callan was asleep in the next room. For a long time, I just stood there watching him breathe, wondering how I'd ever explain any of this to him. He didn't deserve this storm, none of it. I promised myself then that I wouldn't let her betrayal define the kind of father I'd be. She'd taken enough from me, she wouldn't take him, too. The next morning, the resort staff avoided eye contact. Everyone had seen the truth. Word spread faster than the wind that carried it, and while Raina disappeared into her own silence, I stayed behind for one last walk by the sea. The ocean was calm again, as if nothing had happened. But I had. I was no longer the same man who'd arrived here with hope. That version of me was going to be buried somewhere beneath the same waves that had once carried our laughter. All that remained was clarity, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing the truth had finally set me free. Time has a strange way of healing you while still reminding you of the scars. When we returned home, life didn't feel the same. But it was honest again. That honesty was worth more than the illusion we once lived in. Raina didn't come back with us. She stayed away, maybe too ashamed to face what she'd done. For weeks I heard nothing. Then one morning I got a message from her sister, a short one. Everyone knows Elias. She's lost everything. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. Karma doesn't need applause. It just needs time. And time had done its work. Levin's wife found out about the affair after someone at the resort leaked a video clip online. Their marriage ended publicly and painfully. His business collapsed soon after, apparently. Betrayal doesn't attract loyal clients. As for Raina, her family turned their backs on her. The people who once called her perfect couldn't even look her in the eye. I heard she tried moving away, starting over somewhere new, but the internet never forgets. Every time she tried to rebuild, the truth followed her. Meanwhile, I focused on Callan. We started small at late-night movies, weekend road trips, burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings. I learned how to smile again, not because the pain vanished, but because I refused to let it own me. My mother once told me, "You don't get to choose who breaks you, but you do get to choose what you become afterward." Sometimes I still think about that night by the sea, the stars, the silence, the moment everything changed. I used to wish it had never happened. But now I understand it had to. Because without that breaking point, I'd still be living in a lie, blind to the truth that set me free. Karma doesn't always come crashing in. Sometimes it walks quietly, barefoot, through the ruins of your pain, and when it arrives, it doesn't ask for permission. It simply balances the scales. It's strange how peace can feel both heavy and light at the same time. Months have passed since that night, and though the pain hasn't completely faded, it no longer controls me. I still wake up sometimes expecting to hear her voice, then remember that silence can be its own kind of healing. I don't hate Raina anymore. Hate is just another chain, and I've carried enough of those. Callan's laughter fills the house again. That's what saved me, the sound of innocence untouched by betrayal. Watching him grow, I realized something important. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone back into your life. It's about letting them leave without taking your peace with them. Some people say revenge brings satisfaction. Maybe it does for a moment. But what truly set me free wasn't her downfall. It was my decision to stop needing her pain to justify my own. She chose deceit. I chose truth. And in that choice, I found myself again. Sometimes when the sun dips below the horizon, I stand outside and listen to the wind. It reminds me of that night by the sea. The same waves that once carried heartbreak now carry peace. Life doesn't give you neat endings. It gives you lessons disguised as storms. If you've ever been betrayed, remember this: pain doesn't define you how you rise after it does. Truth always finds its way, and karma never misses its mark.